Welcome to the Icarus Star channel. I died on our 5th wedding anniversary. She never believed me and thought I was joking. It wasn't until she had a fight with her first love and called me for advice that she realized I wasn't joking. Eli, how long are you going to keep up this Cold War? Are you getting a divorce? Is it really necessary to throw the ring and flowers in the ditch on our anniversary? I'll tell you what, even if I don't get your flowers, I'll get flowers from Trent. I spoke to my mother and she said, Vivien, my son is dead, and you will never receive flowers from him again. Welcome to subscribe, and our story begins here. In the past, Vivien Hart and I had a big fight because she wanted to use $900,000 in the bank to invest in her first love, and I didn't agree. On our wedding night, she went to his house and stayed the whole night to take care of him. On my birthday, she went to his house and cooked for him, and to celebrate my promotion, she went to clean his house for him. I'm not willing to give him my 5 years of hard-earned savings. This is a surefire money-making project. Why don't you believe Trent Reed? Just because he was my first love? We've long since had nothing to do with each other. There's no need to be so petty. Nothing to do with each other? Are you saying that from the bottom of your heart? Okay. Then why do you attend his birthday celebrations every year on time? Is this a matter of whether I should be petty or not? Vivien rolled her eyes, poked me in the chest with her index finger, and said that you know what he has done for me, and shouldn't a life-saving debt be repaid? I told you, it would never be enough in this life. I once said that I would repay this debt for you. You don't have to rush over every time he calls. Nor do you have to bring him soup and medicine when he's sick, or even personally take him anywhere. I love Vivien, so I was afraid of saying hurtful things to her out of anger, so I chose to slam the door and leave. We had a Cold War for a week, and I thought about coaxing her back on our wedding anniversary. I went to the florist to pick up the 199 roses I had ordered, but on the 5th anniversary of our wedding, I found a pair of men's leather shoes by the door, belonging to Trent. I threw the bouquet and the ring into the sewer. Before the lawyer could prepare the divorce papers, I was distracted while driving and was hit by a truck, which overturned and fell off the bridge. I died instantly. I never imagined that as a surgeon. I had studied hard for more than 10 years, but in the end I was unable to save myself and was just hit and killed. My soul floated out from under the car. I never thought I would end up next to Vivien. At first I was very confused, but gradually I could only accept this reality. Perhaps I did my best to give her the best things in life, worked hard just to give her a better life in the future, but the result was frustrating. After I died, her life continued as usual. It seemed that it didn't matter if I was by her side or not. She ate well, slept soundly, and was even happier than when I was around. Indeed, no one reminded her of her husband and doctor anymore. She has 1,000-degree myopia and shouldn't read on her phone at night when the light is off. She shouldn't eat cold rice and drink less milk tea and Coke. I cook for her, hoping that she won't order takeaway, but she thinks I don't cook well. I insist that my food is healthy, but she says it tastes like disinfectant. I wash my hands carefully after every operation. She says I don't know how to cut vegetables well, but I personally performed a complicated kidney transplant for her. For this operation, I gave up the opportunity to go to the United States for further studies. The operation was a great success. I took care of her every day, but when she was able to get out of bed on the first day, she was anxious to see Trent. I couldn't help but want to ask her, "Do you have a heart?" Vivien lifted her phone, and the top contact was Trent. I saw her chatting with him, and she had an expression on her face that she had never shown me before. Happy, shy, happy and excited. Even during the honeymoon period, I have never seen her like this. Maybe we shouldn't get married. I'm just an obstacle between her and her first love, Trent. They have true love. Since I've known her, she's mentioned Trent more times than she's mentioned me. But today, she seemed a little angry with Trent. Because of the money she gave Trent without consulting me, all of her investments have failed, and the value of the financial products has dropped sharply and may continue to fall. She and Trent had a fight. That's when he remembered me and called me, but his tone was still very firm. Elisha, how long are you going to keep up this Cold War? Do you want a divorce? Do you really want to throw away the ring and the flowers in the trash on our anniversary? I'll tell you what, even if I don't get your flowers, I'll get flowers from Trent. She never expected my mother to answer the phone. Vivien, my son is dead. You'll never get flowers from him again. I send her flowers every holiday, and she's gotten used to it. Every time, she just says thank you and puts the flowers in a vase, letting them wither. I thought she didn't like flowers. Vivien, do you find it troublesome to take care of them? She doesn't show much emotion on her face, but they actually look quite nice just sitting there. Flowers are just there to look at, they don't mean much, so why bother? Doesn't she feel happy every day when she sees the flowers? Vivien said, I guess a little bit. Because of this, I insisted on sending her flowers for 5 years. Not just flowers, but every time I came back from an operation across the province, I would give her a gift. Gold and silver jewelry and specialty foods. She was very happy. But she was even happier when she was with Trent. The phone was hung up. My mother hung up out of concern for me. As I was hanging up, I heard her sobbing in pain. I floated over to Vivien and wanted to see even the slightest sign of affection from her. After so many years, the relationship had long been established. But I was disappointed. Vivien paused for a moment, her mouth curling up into a slight smile, before bursting out laughing. Humph! Who would believe it? I certainly didn't. Her face showed no concern, as if she had heard about what happened to a stranger on the other side of the world. I felt a sharp pain in my heart, as if a noose was tightening. Even as I was dying, I was still thinking of her, but she never thought of me. She gave Trent all the savings we had worked so hard to save for 5 years, never considering our future. Perhaps the future she was looking forward to was one with Trent, but not with me. I once thought that after getting married, we could go on forever, but I was wrong. I was just a mistake between Trent and Vivien. I followed Vivien to a bar, where the music was loud and the lights were flashing. She walked up to the bar and gently helped Trent, who was drunk unconscious, to his feet. How could you drink so much? Her face was full of distress, as if it was even more difficult for her to hear about my accident than it was for me. You can't drink, but you still drink. You still have a stomach, don't you? Vivien gently reminded me, her tone full of concern. But I clearly remember when I was negotiating a foreign trade contract for her. She pulled me out the door and told me to drink more, preferably all night long, to make the boss happy. That night I got drunk and ended up in the emergency room. While I was lying in the operating room, she was happily celebrating with Trent. Trent even took a photo of the barbecue and sent it to me. The food looked delicious, but unfortunately I couldn't enjoy it. I tried to comfort myself by thinking that Vivien was just so busy making money that she forgot about me for a while, and that she didn't know I was sick. But now I can't console myself. In fact, she just doesn't have any feelings for me. Trent, you better watch out. Vivien helped Trent home, gave him slippers, and let him lie down on our bed. In the past, when I worked night shifts and came home after working all night, I didn't dare take a bath or go to bed for fear of disturbing her, and also because she was a bit of a germaphobe. Now it seems that her germophobia only seems to target me. She thinks I'm dirty, but not Trent. How about we go on a trip to Sanya to relax? The products have lost money, so what's the point of drinking so much? It's not good for your health. You've already donated a kidney to me. The doctor said not to drink either. I saw her wipe his body with a towel, cover him up, and then busily go to the sofa to rest until late at night. She closed her eyes, then opened them drowsily, dragged her tired body, and picked up her phone. I stared at her relentlessly, with no expectations in my heart. She typed for a few minutes, frowned, and then deleted everything. I sat in the living room, my heart aching as I thought about how we had lost all the money we had saved up over 5 years. Tears flowed uncontrollably. It was dark around me, and I felt so sad. The next morning, I woke up to find her staring at the bank balance. It was less than 5 digits. She gritted her teeth and bought the plane ticket to Sanya to make Trent happy. I had asked her if she wanted to go together, but she said she didn't need to spend the money. It was just the wrong person. They swam together, ran on the beach, played volleyball, basked in the sun and built sandcastles. As the sun set, Trent pointed at Vivien and said, "It's not too crowded now. Can you take off your white shirt?" Vivien was a little surprised. "Trent, you're kidding. I'll go first." Trent took off his shirt and threw it on the beach, raising an eyebrow to indicate that she could follow suit. Vivien was a little embarrassed. Trent lowered his head and said, "If you don't swim with me, I don't want to exercise. The doctor told me I need to exercise." Vivien stood up and said, Okay, I'll accompany you, although I think Trent looks very big. I can never understand why he always acts so weak, but Vivien just likes him, and she can even believe in his poor acting skills. She took off her white shirt, revealing her fair skin, and Trent's eyes widened, a hint of a smile on the corner of his mouth. "Not as big as that drunkard's," the man said softly. "What? It's okay, Vivien. I can't swim, so hold on to me." "Okay, I will hold on tight." I saw it clearly and felt nothing but disgust. As night fell, it was time for dinner. Trent served Vivien her meal and poured a glass of mint lemonade. Vivien looked straight ahead, distracted. "What do you think? How much did you spend this time?" "I'll pay you back. I'll pay back the losses on the investment, too," Trent said guiltily. Vivien shook her head and said, "It's okay. It's not about the money." Trent was taken aback, thinking, "Is it Eli?" Vivien paused, her face looking a little flustered, thinking, "How could it be? Why would I miss him? I know you two had a fight because you lent me the money, didn't you? Still because of me after all. Why don't you give him a call? Or I'll do it and I'll explain. You mustn't have any misunderstandings. Really, if you don't make up, I'll feel bad for Eli. He's always felt guilty. Does he know that you came to Sanya with me?" Vivien lowered her head and said, "He doesn't need to know, and even if he did, it wouldn't affect me. My mother-in-law said he had passed away. How could a dead person know these things?" I lamented how there could be such cold-hearted people in the world. My heart was devastated. "I'm full. I'm going to go back to my room first." Vivien also returned to the hotel. She lay on the bed and chose the loan with the highest interest rate. I earned most of the family's income. It didn't matter if she used money generously in the past, but now, was she expecting that unreliable person to support her? I was very eager to see how she planned to repay this loan. After returning from Sanya, Vivien's life was just like before, and she completely forgot about me. In addition to her official job, she also had 6 part-time jobs, and her days and nights were reversed. Not only did she have to work, she also had to spend time with Trent and make him happy. In order to explain his emotions, she often stayed up late with him, and sometimes even went to the doctor with him when he was sick. If he said he was bored, she would go over to keep him company. She ordered takeaway that day and streamed it while eating. She never imagined that someone as proud as her would be willing to appear on camera. After the live stream ended, the chat box was full of teasing comments. Someone said, "Pretty young lady. Show us. Any plans with a pretty young lady?" She turned off the live stream. At that moment, her colleague Sierra Cole came to visit. Where's Eli's car?" Vivien didn't answer, but went into the kitchen and got the rest of the takeaway chicken soup. Sierra sat down, took a sip, and felt really bad about it. "The last time I visited your house, Eli knew you loved chicken soup and spent the whole afternoon learning how to cook it. And it was delicious." Vivien looked confused. "Actually, I didn't really like chicken soup, but because I had just had surgery at the time, he started to make it for me every day. Cooking chicken soup and cooking every day, this is really the mark of a good man. Ask how many men can be like Eli." Sierra looked at the entrance hall and noticed that there were no flowers in the vase. Flowers are useless and expensive, and their practical significance must be considered. Sierra guessed something. "Did you and Eli have a fight? You should really treasure him. Every time I come to your house, he asks me what you like these days and what you want to bring back from your business trips. You don't want to get up early to cook, and there's no canteen at work. But there is one at Eli's hospital. He's worried that ordering takeaway is unhealthy. So every month he gives me money to bring you an extra breakfast. Every time you post on your WeChat moments about your wedding anniversary, birthday, or Valentine's Day, it's all about how happy you are. Who wouldn't be jealous of your husband's hand-arranged flowers and gold jewelry engraved with your initials? Sierra had said a lot, and I couldn't listen anymore, just feeling a surge of anger in my heart. Devoting myself wholeheartedly to Vivien was the stupidest thing I've ever done. Go get Eli back here now. What a fool I was. I thought Vivien would refuse immediately, but I didn't expect her to freeze up like that. After Sierra left, I looked ahead a little dazed. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Trent. Vivien, I just saw you on live streaming. Why are you doing a food show? You know how guys tease you sometimes. Don't be an anchor anymore. You have to laugh and dance with other people, and call the person who gives you gifts your brother. Don't you really feel disgusted? All of this is my fault. If I hadn't lost all my money, you wouldn't be in trouble. Where is Eli? Isn't he coming back to take care of you? By the way, he didn't give me any money this month. Trent stopped talking a little panicked. For the first time, Vivien glared at Trent. I thought I was wrong. How could she glare at Trent? She liked him so much and cared for him. How could she bear to hurt him? I work all day and night, and when I get home I have to broadcast to make money, and you come over here criticizing me? If I don't do the food broadcast, who will pay the mortgage, the car loan, and the utility bills? Are you going to pay it? Eli is going to pay it. Otherwise, why did you marry him? You're so irrational. Vivien spoke very quickly, and Trent touched his kidney. She immediately lowered her head, and then slammed the door and left. She squatted on the roadside, leaning against the wall, next to the garbage station. She cried all night, and her voice made me feel noisy. In the early morning, she stood up, her eyes swollen and red with bloodshot, and walked towards the road. At this time of the morning, there was no traffic on the road, and cargo trucks passed by one after another. At this moment, I wanted her to experience the pain of being run over by a car. The car honked, and Vivien realized what was happening and slowly backed away. She braved the cold wind and kept looking at our house from time to time. She must have been wondering why Trent wasn't coming out to comfort her. How could someone she cared about so much and was worried about not worry about her getting hurt? At that moment, my phone rang. Hello, is this Ms. Hart? Mr. Reed got drunk at our bar. Can you come pick him up and settle the bill? I couldn't help but smile when I saw Vivien's disheveled appearance. I'd never seen her look so exhausted before, when I'd brought Trent home from the bar. She looked like a lost girl. Once she was the red rose I took such good care of, but now she was wilted like a weed by the roadside, without color or vitality. Vivien drove fast all the way home after dropping Trent off. Maybe life was weighing her down. She picked up her phone and tried to call me, but then she put it down again. I know her pride won't let her take the initiative. She continued driving, and then suddenly stopped. I turned around and saw that it was my house. My mother was fertilizing the garden. When she saw Vivien coming over, she angrily threw the fertilizer at her and yelled, "Leave, Vivien. Go as far away as possible." She was drenched in fertilizer, but she still stood there. Not a move. Mom, I've come to see Eli. My mother's eyes fill with tears. Haven't I made myself clear? He's dead. Eli is dead. Mom, if you ask him to come out, I have a lot to explain to him face to face. Vivien still doesn't believe me. My mother angrily throws the fertilizer on her feet. Please, ask him to come out. I know I was wrong and I've come to apologize. The coldness of her heart still trembles at this moment. Those were the words Vivien spoke. I used to dote on her, and no matter what happened, I would protect her. But such sincerity seemed like a withered flower to her. Ignored. She appeared to care not at all. Vivien repeated, "Let Eli come out, really?" My mother walked up to her and said sternly, "You're sorry for him. Really sorry." Vivien was shocked by her gaze and retorted, "Mom, I've been patient with you. Don't push me." She continued, "Do you know that Eli swapped kidneys with Trent to save you? You're alive because of Eli. Vivien was stunned. So was I. As a soul, I don't remember much. When you were in the hospital in a coma, Trent was reluctant to donate his kidney to you. So Eli convinced him by donating his own kidney to his alcoholic lover. Vivien's eyes widened in surprise. You're lying to me. There's no scar on him at all. You really don't deserve Eli loving you so much. At the time, you were fully engaged in the business war, and Eli didn't want you to be affected because of him, so he chose to get the scar removed with laser surgery. You really don't have a heart. While you were making soup for Trent and caring for him, did you ever show a little care to Eli? You loved him deeply. He gave up the chance to further his studies for you, was willing to take the risk of not getting promoted, even donated a kidney to cure your illness, broke the hospital rules and personally operated on you, and was criticized by his superiors. At that time, he had just come out of another surgery and had been busy in the operating room for a whole 23 hours, just to save your life. The just sutured wound split open again, and the surgical gown was soaked in blood. Did you know this? But you were always close to Trent and never really loved Eli, who had done everything for you. He always thought of you, didn't want you to worry, and only wanted to give you the best. He wanted you to be happy, and loved you from an early age, but you never paid him any serious attention. Once, my mother's words reminded me of something from a long time ago. It was more than 10 years ago, and I was at a running competition in the playground of Guanglin Primary School. The sun was shining, but the competition got me into trouble. During the race, I accidentally knocked over a classmate, and we both fell to the ground and rolled several meters. He was injured and needed to go to the hospital for treatment, which was very expensive and my family simply could not afford. So his parents took me to court. My mother even considered selling the house that we had worked so hard to save up for to help me pay off the debt. I felt so helpless and full of guilt. My classmates at school blamed me, and the principal also publicly criticized me in front of the entire school. Just as he mentioned the names of the grades and classes and humiliated me in front of thousands of people, Vivien suddenly stood up and shouted, "Principal, stop! You can't do this." As soon as the words fell, the bad news came. The injured student unfortunately passed away in the hospital. The principal and teachers began to treat me like a murderer. All my classmates, teachers, parents and friends blamed me and called me a murderer. In this heavy and helpless atmosphere, Vivien from Class 5, Grade 3, volunteered to go on stage and stand behind me, pointing at everyone and saying, "Why do you call him a murderer? He's not. Don't say anything without evidence. The person died of hemophilia, it had nothing to do with him, he's not a murderer." The judge made the final decision. Even if I was innocent, I was still hurt. The 6th grade seniors cornered me every day and bullied me, took off my school uniform and stole all my valuables. They threw my bag, clothes and shoes into the river. No matter how hard I tried to explain, they wouldn't let up. They said they were justified in beating me up, that they were doing God's work. The law can't punish you, so we'll do it. I wanted to transfer schools, but my family was heavily burdened. My father was in poor health and the whole family had to rely on my mother alone. I feel so helpless. Every day I am bullied and suffer. I even had to jump into the river to retrieve my school uniform and bag. I dare not bring my books and pencil case for fear that they will be torn. The teacher not only scolds me, but also calls me a bad student. I am made to stand in the corner almost every lesson, and I have to stay there all day. Everyone isolates me and sneers at me behind my back. I have not spoken a word for a whole year and dare not look up at anyone. On the first day of the new school year, I stood by the river thinking about ending it all. Just then, someone grabbed me and handed me a white rabbit milk candy. "Classmate, the water here is not suitable for swimming." It was Vivien. She dragged me into the water, took me to her house for dinner, and her father, a righteous policeman, was willing to drive me to and from school every day. I was very grateful and kept saying thank you. In order to solve my problem, Vivien accompanied me to lunch and after school, but soon spread rumors among her classmates. I felt aggrieved and had a conflict with that person. That day, I was dealt with by the principal and faced expulsion. Vivien's father helped me find a new school and even lent me money. I secretly helped people with their homework to earn money, and it took me 6 months to pay it back. Later, I saw Vivien again in high school. She was a year ahead of me, doing well in her studies and had a boyfriend. Someone as beautiful and helpful as her quickly integrated into the class and made a lot of friends. While I had long faded from her memory, in order to see Vivien, I would deliberately go to the playground every day. I pretended to be running hard, while keeping an eye on her in the corner of my eye. Vivien was still kind, and she was always the first to stand up for what was unjust. She was a good person, but unfortunately her father was seriously injured in an accident and passed away. I was in my 20s at the time, and when I attended the funeral, the wife of my uncle asked me to take good care of Vivien. We went on a date. I was so excited that I hid the wrapper of a white rabbit candy in the palm of my hand. I wanted to tell her that I could actually survive every moment because of her. Whenever I felt desperate, I would open this white rabbit candy wrapper. However, Vivien, who was sitting at the table on the blind date, said coldly that marriage meant nothing to her, just living with a stranger. My mother is pushing me to get married, and we can barely accept it. She didn't eat and left without moving her chopsticks. I kept reassuring myself that because I loved her, I wanted to give her the best and repay her. During our relationship, Vivien suddenly developed kidney failure and urgently needed a kidney transplant. But my kidney was not suitable. I found a suitable kidney donor for Trent, but he was unwilling. I learned that his lover needed some help, so I made a deal with him to give him 50,000 yuan a month. He agreed. After the operation, Vivien became very weak, and I endured the pain from my wound as I nursed her. I learned to cook and make soup, thinking she would like it, but she gave all my meals to Trent instead. Vivien felt she owed him so much that she often told me she felt guilty, and that she was a burden to others. I told myself not to let her worry about me anymore. As her husband, I tried to take care of her and do better every day, but I slowly realized that although I gave a lot, it seemed that I only benefited Trent. I began to feel jealous. There were constant arguments with Vivien, and every time I tried to explain, I was never given the chance. I knew that her kidney was Trent's, and that had not changed. Even if she knew everything, she would still be good to him. It was just that some of her care was given to me. On our wedding night, she went to his house and took care of him all night. On my birthday, she went to his house and cooked for him. To celebrate my promotion, she also went to help him clean his room. I endured a lot for the sake of our marriage and my love for her. But what about Vivien? When I called for help after being hit by a truck and nearly dying, she hung up on me and turned off the lights in her room. I called the hospital and offered to donate all my organs, leaving my corneas to Vivien because she had been waiting for a match. After the kidney transplant, I didn't rest properly and almost bled to death at home. At that time, I made my will, leaving everything to Vivien except a portion to my mother. I poured all my heart and soul into this, hoping that she would pay more attention to me, even just a little bit, but she acted so close to Trent, and Trent kept showing off in front of me. At this time, I felt extremely depressed. When Trent called, he heard Vivien's voice, saying, "Trent, I don't want to have a child with Eli, so I've been taking birth control pills. I just hope she understands how I feel about her." My heart finally broke. The will to live disappeared completely, and I gave up struggling, letting my heartbeat stop, desperately holding onto the phone. Mom took Vivien to my grave. Now do you believe me? I didn't need to curse my son and set up his tombstone in advance. I thought Vivien would turn around and leave when she saw it. But she didn't. She stood quietly, staring at the photo on the tombstone without taking her eyes off it, her face full of shock. The sky was gloomy and pouring with rain. While Mom got in the car and left, Vivien was still there, kneeling in front of the grave, gently stroking the black and white photo on the tombstone. Her eyes were red and a few tears had fallen. I watched her coldly. The rain had blurred her face as she stroked the inscription Eli on the tombstone. How could such a good person have died? Eli, aren't you a doctor? Don't you usually pay attention to your health? How could this have happened? This is impossible. She shook her head desperately, grabbed her phone and finally dialed my number. She dialed again and again, once, twice, 3 times, getting more and more agitated. Eli, why won't you answer my calls? How could you leave me first? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to go on living? Why didn't you tell me everything? Why didn't you want to tell me? It was late at night, and the rain had soaked her to the bone. Vivien rested her head on my tombstone, her eyes vacant, her face pale and trembling slightly. She suddenly began to kneel in front of my tombstone, crying and bowing her head, her voice hoarse, until her forehead bled. Was she feeling sorry and guilty for my death? Could it be that she really felt a trace of sadness at my leaving? I didn't want her to get hurt here. I just hoped that in the next life we could each live our own lives. My mother sent my things to Vivien. That day she was evicted by the bank because she couldn't pay the mortgage, and she encountered a lot of difficulties. The neighbors were all concerned about her situation. Vivien didn't ask for anything. Holding a delivery box, she froze for a moment and sat down on the dirty roadside. Homeless. I sat here with the beggars. Opening the box, the first thing she took out was my mobile phone. I was surprised. My mother wanted to make her feel even more remorseful. But I don't need it. I don't want this. I floated in front of Vivien, trying to stop her. But I was just a spirit, my hands floating around, unable to grab her. I could only watch her. The password screen on the phone. She tried my birthday first, but it didn't work. Then she tried her birthday, and it was correct. She opened the phone, and the wallpaper was our wedding photo. Then she opened the memo. It was full of entries about her likes, dislikes, and moods. The same was true of the photo album, which was full of photos of her. We took a lot of photos together, and apart from the wedding photo, the most I took without her permission were of her asleep. I thought she looked quiet and cute when she was asleep, and there were hundreds of photos of her like that. The second thing she took out of the box was a cornea donation form. Vivien finally burst into tears. She covered her mouth and let the car pass, raising a cloud of dust. She took out the third item from the box, which was a will. Her body trembled even more violently. Then she took out the fourth item, which was the wrapper of a large white rabbit candy. Her eyes were a little blank, as if she had remembered something. The fifth thing she took out of the box was a box of ashes. She completely broke down, holding my ashes tightly, tears streaming down her face, refusing to let go. She kept calling my name over and over again. She didn't know that I could hear her. Unfortunately, if I hadn't left, I would have never blamed you for calling out my name. It's just that I don't love you anymore. Vivien hurried to Trent's house. She hid a rusty knife she found in the trash in her pocket. At that moment, Trent was enjoying his time with his other half in bed. Trent was scared and immediately got out of bed, hurriedly explaining, "Vivien, don't get me wrong. This time it's for real." Vivien interrupted him. "Trent, I'm asking you, do you like me or not? Be honest in your answer." Trent looked at his drunk friend next to him, then turned to Vivien, thinking about her situation, and kept saying, "Of course it's you. Vivien, please forgive me. I won't dare to do it again. I got drunk yesterday and didn't expect you to not reply to me all day. My kidneys really hurt and I couldn't take it anymore, so I had to send her a message to come over and take care of me. You won't blame me, will you?" Vivien couldn't stop crying or laughing, and gradually became a little agitated. "So all along you felt more than just friendship for me?" Trent froze for a moment. "Of course I have. If you're willing to be with me, I'll definitely say yes. Vivien, I've always loved you very much, and I'm willing to do anything for you. How could I not love you?" Vivien stepped closer and stared at him, asking, "Then who gave you the 50,000 yuan a month?" Trent was taken aback. Vivien pointed at the woman on the bed. "And how is she still alive? Don't you love me? Then bring me her kidney. We both wronged Eli. You give her kidney back to Eli, and I'll give you mine so we don't owe each other anymore." "Vivien, what are you doing? Did Eli say something to you? He's lying to you. Don't you trust me?" Vivien pulled out a knife and charged at the woman. Trent didn't expect Lulu to react like that. The scene was in chaos. Trent grabbed Vivien's arm while the woman on the bed screamed and ran away. Vivien rushed towards her like crazy. "Trent, let go of me." Vivien bit his arm hard, and he yelled at her to let go. Taking the opportunity, he stabbed her in the kidney with the knife, and the sheets turned red with blood. Vivien held his left kidney in her hand and said, "Eli, I'm returning your kidney to you." She threatened Trent with the knife and tied him up. Then she put the kidney in a box, rushed to the cemetery next to my grave and buried it. Then she quickly returned to Trent's house, pushed open the door and pointed the knife at Trent. "Trent, let me tell you, I was nice to you because I thought you were my savior. But you not only lied to me, you also bragged to Eli about it many times, ruining our relationship. If it weren't for you, how would Eli and I have come to this? On our 5th wedding anniversary, you insisted on staying at my house, saying you had kidney pain, didn't you? I'll give you your kidney back now, how's that? I'll cut open your stomach and put it back in for you. Okay?" Trent was terrified. His mouth was covered with a rag, so he couldn't make a sound. Vivien was closing in on him, and he felt a strong desire to survive, so he headbutted her. Then he used the knife to cut the rope. Vivien immediately stood up, regained control of the knife and pointed it at him. Trent was forced to the kitchen sink, and pulled up the kitchen knife and pointed it at Vivien. "Don't come any closer. I really will do it. Don't think I won't." He didn't know that Vivien wasn't afraid at all. The rusty knife plunged below the heart. Trent forced distance by holding the kitchen knife against her chest. But Vivien ignored the danger of the knife and walked straight towards Trent in order to stab deeper. A long gash appeared below his heart, and blood spilled all over the floor. The alarm kept going off. I suddenly felt myself drifting away from Vivien, leaving the noisy room. I returned to my own grave and saw my mother holding white chrysanthemums in front of the tombstone. I smiled at her and said goodbye. I hoped that time would treat her gently. My soul began to drift upwards, higher and higher, and my consciousness gradually became blurred as my memories slowly faded. I woke up in Trent's kitchen to find the police and paramedics filling the room. I looked down at myself and was shocked to see that I had turned into a white mist. Seeing myself lying in a pool of blood, I realized that this was my soul. In that case, would I be able to find Eli? I still wanted to say sorry to him personally, and that I loved him, but I looked everywhere, at his grave, at our home, at his parents' home. I searched the whole city, but I just couldn't find him. He must be so disappointed in me. But I didn't stop loving him. I always loved him. On our wedding day, I went to my father's grave happily to share the good news with him. I remember how he took such good care of me after my surgery. Whenever he fell asleep from exhaustion, I would tuck him in. He made soup, which I didn't think he liked, but then Trent messaged me that he was in pain, so I brought him the chicken soup. I thought Eli was my husband, and that he was taking care of me and loving me because that's what he does. I didn't need to repay him, but I was wrong. So wrong. In my eyes, Trent is my rescuer. In order to dispel the guilt in my heart, I tried hard to be nice to him, but I have irreparably hurt Eli. I once thought that he was my husband. We have a marriage certificate, and we are considered family and partners, so we can tolerate each other. I have been a bit reckless in this way of thinking, and I have crossed Eli's bottom line a few times. In fact, I have never considered how to make amends. The flowers Trent sent were really beautiful. When he wasn't around, I would linger in the entranceway for a long time every day when I left the house, always feeling like something was missing. When I was in Sanya with Trent, I also kept missing Eli. He had offered to come on holiday, but I refused. I really want to explain that it's not that I don't want to have a child with Eli. On the contrary, I really want to have a baby for him. I felt inferior and sensitive. I have hereditary kidney disease, and the doctor told me there is an 80% chance that I will pass it on to my child. So I chose to use contraception. I was disappointed in my inability to do so I treated Eli worse and worse, wanting him to focus on work or other things. The more he was nice to me, the more I resisted. Unconsciously, I became cold towards him and pushed him away. Looking back now, I really made a lot of mistakes. Eli, where are you? Can you come back and see me? I really realize my mistakes, and I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just want to see you. Just a glimpse is enough. My soul seems to have drifted high into the sky. A woman's voice comes from below, very noisy. I look down at her. She seems a bit out of control, wandering around, and seems to be haunted by a group of evil spirits. She is looking for something, but I'm not sure what. But there is nothing I can do about it. The sky is up there, exuding a warm atmosphere. I think the view there must be beautiful.